All right, good evening, everyone. I am your host, Kanika Mobley, along with Vanessa Mitchell, and we are the co-founders of Stories of a Colorful World. And if this is your first time joining us for our authors conversations, then Stories of a Colorful World is an online children's bookstore, and we focus on carrying books that feature BIPOC characters written by authors of diverse backgrounds. And so we want to use this platform, our authors conversation, to have authors join us and really talk about those children's books and highlight books featuring diverse characters, because there are so many out there. And so tonight we are happy to be joined with Rufia Valiff, coming all the way from Australia. So Rufia, we are so excited to have you on today. Can you just start by telling us just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Rufia. I work as a school counsellor, so I work in both the primary school and high school setting. I love my job and I love spending all day with kids. I feel like I'm still a kid at heart. So yeah, my background is Tatar, and Tatar people are from Tatarstan, which is an republic within Russia. I'm also part Uyghur, who are the people in East Turkestan who are currently being persecuted by the Chinese government, and also partly Uzbek, so I'm just a mix of everything in there. I work with mostly children of refugee and immigrant backgrounds. In the future, I would like to become a psychologist, because I think that we're really lacking in culturally aware psychologists, who can empathize with people growing up, first generation immigrants or people of color, people who are not Australian for us, or maybe for you guys American. So yeah, in the future I'd like to become a psychologist. Right now I'm really loving where I'm at, working with kids day in, day out. So yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Fantastic. So you're an author, um, and so I definitely want to talk about your children's book. But before we get to that, maybe if you could talk to us about you as a young reader, as a young writer, kind of how you got to where we are today.
Yeah, so when I was younger, I spent a lot of time at my grandmother's house on school holidays. And I used to just write long stories on like her scrap paper that she would give me about characters that I wanted to see that reflected my life. Characters who had strict parents, who weren't allowed to do things that their friends were allowed to do, who had really large, close-knit families. So I used to write a lot about that. I used to read, crossing the road, like I'd have my head in a book and my parents would like drag me along so I didn't get hit by a car. On like the shortest car road trips, I'd be reading. In class, like recess and lunch, like I was that nerd who would go to the library and just like read without talking to anyone. So yeah, I've always loved reading and writing and just immersing myself in books. And I've written a few like articles over the years, a few blogs over the years. Nothing's really stuck. I've just kind of, I think I've turned my love of story reading into story collecting, and so that's why I've kind of gone into counseling and psychology, is because I'm so obsessed with hearing about people's lives and like being privy to like the ins and outs of their of their private lives. I'm pretty nosy in that way, I guess. But I just love like hearing stories of children and teenagers and adults that I've worked with whose lives are really different to mine, but also with like so many underlying similarities as well. So yeah, I guess I'm now more into story collecting than storytelling. But Noura Saves the Planet was kind of my first doorway back into that. Like I felt like I was going back into my childhood by writing this book, because I'd left it for so long. So yeah.
Nice. So you have many stories that you've been putting away.
Yeah.
So what was it that kind of like inspired you to say, okay, I want to write this book?
Well, I am Muslim, and a big part of our religion, and actually most religions, but it's, religions are built on kindness. sorry, I don't know what that alarm is. Like built on kindness. And in Islam, every act of kindness is an act of charity, and kindness is a marker of faith, and it's kind of ingrained in everything that we do. So even moving an obstacle from the road, which is what Noura did, that's actually considered, the smallest act of charity that you could do. So I kind of started off with that being my inspiration for it, and then I wanted to move away from being just a faith-based book, but also just like values and like morals in general. Also, I think working with kids on a day-to-day basis, every counseling session I'll ask, what was the highlight of your week, or what was the highlight of your holidays? And they always say oh, nothing, it was boring, I didn't do anything, I just sat on my iPad. And I probe them, and then eventually they open up, and it turns out they did do a lot of cool stuff. They just don't focus on that. They focus on the negative, or they forget about all the cool stuff they did. So I wanted to show children that there's so much more to life than just sitting on your iPad, right? Like, I feel like our generation and, the ones before spent so much more time outside, and I can't even remember wanting to stay inside that much either. Whereas, these days kids are just completely happy to stay inside. And, I respect that. It's a lot easier for parents to give their kid an iPad or give their kid a phone just to kind of hush them down and get some peace and quiet. But I think at the same time, it's so important to inspire the future generations to develop that sense of citizenship and realize that, there's a beauty in getting to know your neighbors, and there's a beauty in contributing to the world that you live in, and develop a change-making ability. Developing those social values and considering how their actions affect everyone around them, the environment, their community, their family, and just thinking more deeply about that. So I wanted to give this as a tool for parents and teachers to kind of guide children to start thinking about what are some small things that you can do locally that don't have to be, major or life-changing.
So your book is totally fitting because last month, we pick a theme of the month for our book picks. And so last month was kindness, and this month is adventure. So there's the mix of the kindness and exploration and getting outside and seeing the world. But as you started to write the story, sort of how did you develop the story of Noura, and what types of acts of kindness she would do? And, did you already know what the ending or what the story was going to be before you put the pen to paper? Not
really. I kind of wrote it within a couple of days last year during our lockdown period. And I initially, I think I thought about making it a list of ideas that parents could do with their kids, that they could refer back to and choose from. But then I thought, why not direct it kind of directly to the kids and, make it something really interactive that they would enjoy reading. So I think I just as I was typing, it just came out, and I wanted to have a lot more acts of kindness that she did, but I also wanted to keep it short and sweet, and just to be inspired to take, to take one idea from the book and then have a kid run with it and create their own ideas. So I really wanted to leave it up to the imagination as well, and not have it completely be a guide of how to be kind or how to do things. So yeah.
That's good.
I absolutely love that. And can you just tell us essentially what is this story about? So give us just a quick summary of the story.
Yeah. So Noura Saves the Planet is about a young girl who I have deliberately left her racially ambiguous so anyone can relate to her, who is inspired by her mum to kind of go out and do things that will contribute to her social and environmental world. And I think she had some really big expectations as to what she wanted to achieve, hence the title of the name. And she was disappointed about, not being able to completely save the whole of humanity. But I think that she was able to recognize that the small things that she could do locally also can contribute to, can build up. And she's only young and she's got a long way ahead of her to go. But at least she's starting to create that, that mindset of wanting to help others.
So the book does have a lot of diverse characters. the delivery man. And so can you talk a little bit about the diversity that you seem to be intentional about in the book?
Definitely. So when I first started writing, like, it was no question that I would have diverse characters. I never wanted like the Sarah, Sams, Toms, like, and that I grew up seeing. Like, no offense to them, but I wanted a bit more diversity. I think it was just about narrowing down who I wanted to include without making it tokenistic. So diversity was always so important to me, and it continues to be, because multiculturalism is so, like, it's everywhere, right? It's the norm. So why shouldn't we see it in books? Like, it shouldn't be its own genre. It shouldn't be a specific part of the library you have to go to. It should just be like ingrained in every book that we see. So it was no question. I wanted to have people, with disabilities, children of color, children of different family dynamics, to see themselves and to feel like, they weren't the only one as well. Even in doing my research for this book, like, I came across so many incredible books about what it's like to be a refugee, what it's like to be a child living with cancer, what it's like to be a child living with a dying family member. And I was just so impressed with how far literature has come. And obviously haven't picked up a children's book in a long time, but I was so impressed with the books that I saw, and that inspired me even more to want to contribute to that as well. My characters are all different nationalities. I've got Mrs. Badu, who is, I think, Nigerian. I wasn't really sure. Could be anything. But yeah, she wears like a really beautiful doak on her head. And I've got Waricha, who is a traditional Ghana First Nations person. And so the Ghana people, they're the land that I live on. So I live on Ghana land. And so they're our First Nations, Indigenous Aboriginals. And so it was super important to me to reflect that as well. So I had to get permission to use the name, to have the pronunciation, and to even have the likeness of his character in there. But it was really worth it, because I think it's so reflective of the place that I grew up in. And I wanted the family, Noura's family, to be a blend of all different nationalities. So even what she calls her grandparents are what I call my grandparents. And I wanted children and families to kind of to feel familiar and to reflect upon different aspects of their personality. So like the grandparents, the grandfather's wearing like Australian flag socks, which I don't know about over there, but over here, like, our immigrant families are just so happy to be here that they like love getting into Australian culture, and they feel so proud to be Australian. I wanted to keep Noura deliberately racially ambiguous, but also have little facets of things that people could relate to as well.
This book has so many like messages that, kids can take away. Like, particularly, sometimes kids feel like they're too small to do, or sometimes even parents feel like, kids are too small to like make a difference or use their voice to make any change. And the fact that Noura kind of like started off like, I'm so little, like, what can I do? And going through this book, not even realizing, how those small acts can make an impact. So what was it, or what do you hope that kids kind of take away from your story?
I guess the main thing would be that, because there's so much emphasis on like, oh, I'm so little. And, my favorite line in the book is, the planet is so big and I'm so little. So I guess what I want them to take away is it's their world, they live in it, and they deserve the opportunity to contribute to it. And they deserve to be inspired to know that they can make a difference to their world. I think what I've learned from being a counselor is that kids think in very black and white terms. So it's always one or the other, big or small. They hardly ever think in grey. They don't really think about the small impact that they as individuals can have, or their like small actions can have, even if they like at recess and lunch, we're eating chips, throw the packet onto the ground. Like, they don't even consider that until you point it out to them and explain to them. And I think it's our job as adults as well to constantly be explaining and just make them understand, like, if everyone did that, how many pieces of rubbish would be on the ground if 10 people decided to throw their chips away? It's not just you, it's all of us. And so when you do one small thing, you can inspire other people to do one small thing as well. So I want kids to feel and to take away that they do have power and they do have the ability to make a change in their hands, that they're not helpless and they don't have to wait until they're a grown-up to do something either. And I think it's up to us as the grown-ups in their lives to support them and to teach them along the way and to encourage that change-making behavior.
I have on a t-shirt that says change maker.
Perfect. I need one of those.
We didn't even plan that.
Awesome.
So one of the things I love about the book too are the illustrations. And you were talking about the diverse characters, but even the story of Noura and saving the planet in the small acts of kindness, they're clearly illustrated in the pictures. And so how did you get to the illustrations, and how did you ensure that it was authentic to the voice that you wanted the book to carry?
Yeah, I don't consider myself a creative person. So even when I sat down to like sketch how I wanted things to look, I would do like little stick characters, and I was very open to anyone's ideas or inspirations. And I just wanted a lot of color. Like I love color and I love, bright things. I didn't want it to be bland. I really wanted it to be like eye-catching. So I just did some stalking on Instagram, and I found my illustrator, Victoria Hyatt. She's very talented. And I reached out to her, and she happened to live in the same city as me, be the same age as me. And it was her first children's book as well. So we met up, and like I proposed my idea to her, and she was super helpful and very open to hearing my ideas, but also contributing her own. And her voice has been a really strong part, I feel, of the characters as well. And she did a really amazing job of bringing them to life. And yeah, she's amazing. Victoria Hyatt on Instagram. She's a designer and illustrator, and yeah, she's very talented. So I was very lucky to have her by my side.
She did the book justice because the illustrations. Yeah,
absolutely. So what advice would you give to like parents who are looking to, instill like that concept of kindness and small acts, into their children? Like what advice would you give them?
The main thing is practice what you preach, right? Like monkey see, monkey do. A child will do what you do, not what you say. So if you say, be kind to this person, or like go say hello to this person, but then you as an adult don't reflect that, like where are they going to learn from? They're not just going to make it up on the spot. So most important thing is explain every step of the way why you did what you did. Explain every step of the way why it's important to say hello to your neighbor, or why it's important to pick up rubbish when you see it, even if it's not yours, because if one person can do one kind thing, you might inspire others to do the same, or at least you'll know in your heart that you're trying your best. Mm-hmm. And you may not be able to save the entire world, but every little act does add up. So I think parents need to help equip their child and not just expect them to know, like, we just do it because we do it, but to explain every step of the way, this is why it's important to pick up rubbish. This is why it's important to recycle. Isn't it cool that this milk carton can be turned into a toy later on? Like, isn't it amazing? And nothing went to waste, so just little lessons like that, I think will, if you're excited about teaching something and explaining something, that your child will also be excited about learning it and bonding with you while they're doing it. Kids love their parents and they want to spend time with them. So any bit of attention that you give, whether it be a teaching moment or not, like they're going to appreciate and just absorb. So, yeah.
Yeah. So will there be a follow-up to Noura Saving the Planet, and will it be centered around other acts or other lessons in the stories?
I hope so.
Yeah. What do you have coming up?
I think right now, because I'm a self-published author, it's been a long and arduous process. So I think I want to take a bit of a break. I have really enjoyed it. It's been very challenging and like a lot of self-learning and, self-discipline and teaching. I would like to, in the future, write about different characters, not necessarily Noura, but definitely different diverse characters as well, doing different things. I haven't thought that far ahead yet, but yeah, I think once I've settled down from, the rush of like getting this out and having the book launch and all that, then I will probably sit down and, I'm inspired by the kids that I see at school. So if I meet a particularly cute kid, I might write about them.
They're good content, kids.
Absolutely. Have you read Noura to any of the kids that you work with yet?
Not yet. So I've actually just ordered my copy of the book because I had a bit of an issue with printing and all that. But I'm definitely looking forward to reading it in classes at school. I'm really lucky to work in a school and have that sort of audience already. And also I've got a lot of little cousins. So I'm hoping to get their feedback, and I'm hoping that they'll be honest but also kind about it.
You never know with kids.
Honestly, I know. I'm like, please just be nice to me. Yeah, I have read it to like one of my boy cousins, and he was like, can you write about a boy next time? Yeah.
Well, they get good feedback, so that's good.
Exactly. And they're honest. They keep me humble. They keep me grounded. So
absolutely.
Well, if you want adult feedback, we love the book. Like I love the messaging of the book. I love the diversity in the book. And so that's been fantastic. And we want to make sure that we know when the book is coming out. So maybe I'll allow you to let us know when we can see the book, where we can find the book.
So it's been a bit of a struggle, like timing everything correctly, but hopefully it will be launched in about August or September, depending on how things work out. So it'll be available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Waterstones through Ingram Sparks, who are a print-on-demand service, which are amazing. And then it'll be available, I think, like via my website as well. Well, I have a store there. And that's rufiavaliffauthor.com. And then if people want to follow on social media, it's at Noura Saves the Planet on Instagram and Rufia Valiff Author on Facebook as well. So yeah, I will keep everyone posted. As it's going along. It's a process.
And we'll be sure to make sure that we add your information to the chat below, and it'll also be on our website so people can stay in contact with you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
So do you have any advice that you would give to like an aspiring writer?
Yeah, I think my main thing to take away is really ask for help, ask for advice, try and get as much input from others as you can, not in terms of like input on the book, but along the way. You sometimes, and they can feel, a new author can feel alone, like they're the only person going through a struggle. But I think when you ask for help, people are so willing to talk about themselves. Like everyone loves talking about themselves, right? And all you need to do is just like reach out to someone on LinkedIn or someone ask to pick their brain, offer to buy them a coffee, and just try and get as much advice, because if you don't ask, you don't get. And just, I think people are a lot more open and kind and willing to help than we give them credit for, and then we expect as well. So yeah, always be open to, I think, reaching out for help. You don't need to do everything on your own. Take advantage of like your support system around you. My family's been incredible, and my friends as well. So yeah, I've been really lucky, and I think you have a lot more resources than you think you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I can believe that. Was there anything that you found really surprising in this process of writing your first book or first children's book?
Yeah, I guess coming back to the self-publishing, I'm doing everything on my own. So, I've never self-published before. Having the book launch, doing the publicity, the marketing, the event management, finding people to do all the, like, there's always something to do, just when I think I can relax, I remember one more thing I can do. So there's a lot of time outside of work hours, put into it, and a lot of effort, a lot of early mornings and late nights. But yeah, I'm really lucky to have people who have guided me and who have given me advice along the way. Shout out to my friend Will, who wrote a book about bullying called A Ferret Named Phil. He's been helping me a lot, walking me through step by step. So I've had to deal with a lot of setbacks and a lot of communication issues here and there, but I think it's all part of the journey. And I've learned a lot about myself as well while doing it. And I think it'll all be worth it in the end. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And some people think like, okay, writing the book is the hard part, but really it's like the work begins once the book is finished, and then all of the work in trying to get it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I wrote the book in like, I think 1 hour on a weekend. I was like, you know, punch it out. I didn't actually expect that I'd go through with it. I just thought I wanted to like get it off my chest.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am 10 months later. So yeah, I think you're right. The part after the book is out, you're like, okay, I have to hit the ground running now, doing all these like marketing things. So yeah, it's been fun.
I love it. Well worth it. So one of the things that we ask is like, as we mentioned earlier, our theme for this month is adventure.
Yeah.
And so when you think of adventure, is there a word or a quote or a phrase that comes to mind?
Yeah, a friend once told me, you've got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that has stuck with me for a long time. I think it's so easy for us to get stuck in our bubble of feeling content with where we are. We might even be happy with where we are, but it just prevents us from making any changes. So every time I feel hesitant about a decision or a choice, you know, I tell myself like, what's the worst that can happen? And then I do the exact opposite of the safe option. So I jump off the cliff, you know? Yeah. So, and I think that really, it allows for us to grow as people. You know, you can't grow when you're stuck in your comfortability, when you're just stuck, you know, like living where you're living, maybe like moving to another city or trying new things. And I think we talk ourselves out of doing things that we want to do so often.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we talk ourselves off the cliff. And I know for myself, like it took me 6 months to sit down and even try and write this book. And that's because I had told myself, you're not even a proper writer. The market is oversaturated. Stay in your lane. No one's going to want to read your stuff. And like, I kept telling myself these messages, you know, for about 6 months, but in the back of my mind, I really wanted to do it. And eventually, you know, I said, you know what, like, what's the worst that can happen? You got to practice what you preach. I tell the kids all the time, you know, chase your dreams, but I don't do the same thing on my own. So yeah, what have you got to lose? Just kind of go for it. And I think, yeah, you've got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's the only way that you can grow as a person. So yeah, that's something I try to live by every day.
Yeah, and when I think about the adventure and the exploration and stepping outside of your comfort zone and outside of yourself, right? It speaks to also the diversity, because the world is bigger than just us, and bigger than our bubbles, and bigger than our experiences. And so when you get out there, you start to see how big the world really is, and how much diversity there is out in the world. And that's certainly a message that we try to push with Stories of a Colorful World, is that it is stories of a colorful world, right? There's so many different experiences and journeys and people that it's so interesting to learn about all of that. So I absolutely love that. I love that.
And nothing changes if nothing changes. So you've got to make the first step before anything can change.
Absolutely. And start young too, right? Like I think that's such a good message, is start young, getting out there.
Exactly.
Absolutely, because you actually have less fear. It's, you know, we have all those self-doubts and things like that once we get older, but when we're young, we're like, oh, we can do anything. And
you're like, I'm gonna do whatever. I'm gonna jump off a cliff. I'm gonna go skydiving. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
If we could all stay kids again, but at least keep that youthful spirit to
exactly.
Trying new things, facing those fears.
It's just a number.
Right, absolutely.
So I want to give you an opportunity to tell us again when we can find the book, and where we'll be able to find the book, and how do we keep up to date with what you have going on. So just so our listeners hear it one more time.
Yeah, so it can be found on my website, which is www.rufiavaliffauthor.com. Also, you can keep track on Facebook, Rufia Valiff Author, or Noura Saves the Planet on Instagram. And then hopefully it will be available on Amazon in about on August 12th. And that will also, I'll be posting that on the Instagram and Facebook as well. So that would be the best place, I think, to stay on top of all the changes and updates.
Awesome. And we'll do whatever we can to help support and promote the book and promote you and all the works that you'll have coming towards us in the future. So it has been an absolute pleasure, especially coming all the way to us from Australia and you being our first international guest. So we are truly honored that you accepted the invitation. So thank you. And we're looking forward to seeing the book and carrying the book. And we often do in-person events. And so we're trying to ramp those up. And so we'd love to have the book on hand because I think it's such a great story about kindness and showing kindness to all. So we definitely want to make sure we carry the book.
Definitely. And thank you for having me as well. Hopefully one day I'll be able to make it to the US after all this craziness is over. Right. So it's been a dream actually to go to the US. So hopefully.
Or we can come to Australia.
Right. We will not mind.
Yeah, for sure. We'll let you in one day.
Right.
Well, thank you again, Rufia, and thank you for all those who tuned in this evening. We have more authors conversations, so if you missed this conversation, we'll have links to it on our website. So please make sure you check us out at www.storiesofacolorfulworld. You can find this interview, but also any of our past authors conversations on the website as well. And Stories of a Colorful World, we have some exciting things coming up. So I mentioned in-person events. So we'll be in Atlanta at the end of the month on July 31st at the Atlanta Indie Market. We've got a new location for this event. So we'll be on the historic Auburn Avenue. So we're very excited about that. And the theme is Christmas in July. So if you are in Atlanta on the 31st, please come out and join us. We'll have more information on our website of where you can find us, but also our newsletter. So if you haven't joined the newsletter, please do, because we also have some other exciting things coming up for Stories of a Colorful World as we try to expand our reach and build our brand as a bookstore that focuses on diverse characters, BIPOC characters, by authors from those same diverse groups. We've got a lot coming in store for you guys. So please continue to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, reach out to us however you can. But it's always a pleasure. So thank you guys. Please join us again next Thursday for a new conversation and we will see you then.
Thank you.
Yeah.